Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Political Talk for JB. I am your host, Julian Boykin, and tonight I am joined by Mr. Will Santivasci, who is running for governor of Alabama. Will, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Julian. Thank you for having me.
Tell everybody a little bit about your background and what has you campaigning to be our next governor.
Okay. I guess to get the full gist of it, I have to go way back to where I first grew up and everything. For instance, I was born in Virginia. I grew up in South Carolina until about 1989, whenever Hurricane Hugo messed up our house, and my dad was stationed at Fort McClellan in Anniston. So at that time, when the house got messed up, he asked us to move to Anniston, and that's how I came to Alabama back in '89. Um, and growing up in Oxford, my family made ends meet with the help of government assistance. Um, at 15, I started bagging groceries. At 17, I was building the grandstands at Talladega Speedway. At 19, I was fabricating airplane parts with state senator. Um, at 20, I got enrolled in college. At 22, I had a little girl, and I had to make a decision of if I wanted to stay in college where I could get a better paying job in the future, or if I take a good manufacturing job that just came to town and provide better for my child then. So I took the manufacturing job. So after leaving school, I worked that manufacturing job. I worked my way up from the production line to programming robots to engineering. Um, and throughout that time, I was trading stocks, buying properties, and remodeling and opening businesses. And at that time, I was investing, like I said, in the properties and in my future. At this time, I had three little girls by this point. Um, I knew that in doing so, I've become successful businessman and property real estate developer. I sustained multiple properties and businesses, and I had to enroll one of my girls in college currently at Auburn University. My other one I put through dental school, and my other one just graduated. Um, so I retired from engineering shortly after the passing of my father in 2023 to focus on what mattered the most, my family and my faith. Um, so I've had a life full of, I've seen all sides of Alabama, if that makes sense. I've been there where we needed state support just to get by. I've been there. I've been the single parent. I've been in school having to make the decisions of putting in the hard work if I'm going to stay in school or provide for my child, single parent. Um, so I've lived the Alabama challenges. So I think with that, that's given me all the tools to help see the everyday challenges of the Alabama residents. Um, so what got me into it is after I saw the candidates who were signed up for to run for governor, I didn't think they related as much as I did to the everyday Alabama resident. So that's initially what got me signed up because I felt we needed a change. We needed we needed a different direction, and we needed somebody who had a different mindset and who was connected with the everyday Alabamian and who relates to them, and somebody who is willing to put in the hard work to make the change instead of somebody who talks good and say they're going to make a change, if that makes sense. So I feel like I've got the skills, I've got the background to put in the hard work and make changes for the better for the state of Alabama, for the everyday person of Alabama.
Let's talk about the lottery. It's been a hot topic. Oh, wow. Let's say I've lived in Alabama from '04 to 17. We left in 17, came back in 23. Even back in the early 2000s, it was a hot topic. What is your stance when it comes to the lottery? Is that something that you think that Alabama not necessarily wants but needs when we look at our budget and we try to figure out, okay, how do we increase revenue without having to increase taxes on our taxpaying citizens?
Yeah, I think I personally am for the lottery, where I'm just one vote though. So I think the biggest thing here is not so much if I'm for the lottery, but is the state for the lottery? It's been going on 30 years since the state, given technology changes and everything else, you don't need to leave your house to do a lottery anymore.
Correct.
So again, I don't think it's so much as if I'm for the lottery or not. It's is the state for the lottery, and it's been way too long since they've been able to have a voice and have a choice. So I feel like my primary role as governor would be to let the state decide if they want a lottery or not, and not wait 30 years on any situation or any topic. Have to wait that long for the state to decide if they want whatever change for their self. So my goal and my job is to give them a voice. But for me, I am for the lottery. But whether it passes or not, I'm completely fine with it. My main goal is just to give the residents of Alabama a voice and an option, so they know that they're heard and they're what they want matters. It's not so much us holding up anything going to or pushing our agendas. I think the residents should be able to decide which direction the state goes in.
When we talk about um, teacher shortages, when you talk about that and you talk about oversized classrooms that are crowded where one teacher might have 30 to 40 students, how do we, what is your plan when we trying to figure out, okay, how do we recruit teachers to come to the state of Alabama if they don't already live in the state of Alabama? And how do we retain our teachers so that we're making sure that we're compensating them in a fair and reasonable wage?
Well, just like you said, we got to be able to offer comparable wages to the neighboring states, so we don't lose teachers to other states. The other thing, I think the Choose Act is a good idea, where where students, whether it's academically, athletically, or being bullied on, have the choice and the option to be able to go to a different school system if they want to or if they need to. Um, so so with that, I think to be able to retain the teachers with a better wage would be a big deal. And then again, letting the students be able to, or the parents of the students be able to decide if a system isn't best suited for them to be able to move to a different system. But with that, I don't know that with us having to foot the bill on the Choose Act, for instance, I'm for the students being able to pick a different school system, but I don't know that the state should foot the bill on them choosing to go somewhere else, especially whenever we got healthcare facilities in jeopardy of shutting down, and we could use that revenue to keep those open. The things that we aren't able to choose, if that makes sense, the things that are necessities. Um, but yeah, I think just a comparable wage and just better opportunities to keep teachers in here and make them want to come. I think that would be a big thing.
You mentioned something about healthcare facilities shutting down, and I'm presuming you're talking about like those facilities that's in rural areas. So how do we first, are you do you support the expansion of Medicare, Medicaid in rural areas? Because you have a lot of rural areas that don't have hospitals, man, and you got family members that literally you have to take an Uber. You have to drive what hour and a half just to get some form of medical care. So how do we fix that problem in Alabama?
Well, with I'm for the expansion of Medicaid. North Carolina, I believe, recently just knocked out like 200 million, if I'm not mistaken, of their Medicaid debt, like within a year, I believe it was. I don't quote me on that. You can research it, but it's just recently. I just saw it. But so they just knocked out a bunch of their debt through the expansion of Medicaid. So with that, I think that's one thing. Another thing, we need to rely heavily on the infrastructure. We need to be able to get we need to expand telehealth. We need to be able to get satellite hubs, medical hubs to these rural communities. So, like you say, they don't have to drive an hour to a big facility to be able to get treatment. They may not be able to have a big facility in their rural location, but at least they can have a small care patient place, outpatient place where they can get service for most medical needs. And also, I think if we rely on the EMS treat in place programs where they do a lot of the treatment there instead of just transferring them to other facilities every time, I think that'll help a lot as well. But a big thing again will be the infrastructure and having the medical hubs in these rural locations, and then again the technology side relying a lot on the telehealth.
We have a lot of our farmers that are getting out of the farming business and selling to the the developers. How do we increase our farmers? How do we increase small business owners, especially within our young people, and get young people, excited about farming and, owning a farm and being able to provide for our state?
Well, we got to make it profitable for one, I think. Farming's hard. I've done it with my grandmother whenever I was young. Not like the real farmers today and the people who really farm, but I've done it and it's tough. Um, but they're faced with a lot of challenges. Um, I believe there's a lot of things we could do. We could offer better benefits or better incentives. But one of the things is the state of Alabama is probably the single most, probably the single biggest customer to these equipment companies. For instance, we'll just say, I don't know specifically what Alabama uses, but we'll just say if it's John Deere or Kubota or whatever. So I think with us giving these manufacturers so much revenue from the states, again, um, from our single purchase power, I think one of the things we could leverage there would be to ask those companies that if they want us as a customer of the state, then they're going to need to give these farmers discounts and incentives as well. So the farmers will be able to get a discount and have certain leverage to be able to get in the equipment they need and to be able to have just a competitive rate instead of paying normal wages or normal rates for equipment that any Joe Blow pays, who might get one or two pieces of equipment, who's not actually putting into the economy, if that makes sense, or putting into the farming side of it. But that's one thing I think. I think if us as a state would leverage our buying power more on these manufacturers, we can help offset the cost and the burden to a lot of these other small businesses and farmers to where they could get a lot better deals on their equipment and whatnot. And that's just on the equipment side. There's lot more things we could do, I believe.
Minimum wage is a topic right now in Alabama. People saying, hey, we should raise minimum wage. What is your stance on that when we talk about raising minimum wage?
Well, like I said earlier, I'm a business owner. I don't believe that we should raise the minimum wage. I believe that the answer to that, because I know that if we were to raise minimum wage and I had to pay a specific, which I pay my people good, but if I had to pay a certain wage, I know we've got good times, we got bad times as businesses as well. I know residents do and workers do, but businesses have bad times as well. So I know that if we raise minimum wage that I have to pay, I'd cut back on workforce. I'd pass a lot of that cost off to the customers. So I think the answer really should be, I think my job as governor would be to recruit better businesses. So the workers would have better options and better opportunities to be able to get better wages instead of at my business or somebody else's business, and give them more options. I think that's really the goal. Not so much make it harder on small businesses by making a minimum wage, but again, recruiting better businesses and better options, better paying jobs to give more options to the residents of Alabama. And I think we could do that.
When we look at the state funding programs that we have, how do we regulate those state funds to make sure that those funds are not being spent on frivolous things and they're going towards things that we can have an accountability on? So, for example, I know a topic for public assistance programs. It was saying, hey, we don't want the state funded programs to go towards sugary drinks and things of that nature. So how do we have a better regulation system on what our funds are going towards, and we can be able to track it a little bit more? If it's not on paper, be able to track what the individual is doing to a certain degree. If I'm making sense.
Yeah, for sure. It's a good question too. Well, for instance, I got contracted out to do a job at a public housing area, and with that, some of the cars in the parking lot were better than the car I drive. So so a lot of them are getting very well, a lot of good assistance. But I think if whenever they get state assistance, I think the wouldn't be really cutting them back, but it would be better monitoring and better. For instance, if I help you out by giving you, as a state, giving you government assistance, then I would just ask something simple in return, as for instance, checking in a little bit more, maybe, or visiting the gym or wearing a Fitbit or something that the state could go check every once in a while when you do your check-in monthly, or I think they're supposed to check in every so often when they get certain assistance. But when you do your check-in, we can see that you're helping us as far as we're helping you with food assistance, for instance, or living housing assistance, but you're doing just a simple 1 hour a day or 1 hour a week or whatever, walk around the park, and we can check that with a Fitbit or something that we provide or something to that effect. Just, I think better monitoring would be probably the answer to that.
How do we get to a point where we do away with property taxes in Alabama for our homeowners, especially for our elderly community? They're on a fixed income, and property taxes can definitely, be a steep bill for them.
Right. Well, this is one of the things I was campaigning on from the start. Yeah, there's a lot of people, for instance, seniors who've worked their whole life and now they're on a fixed income, and they're used to a set rate of bills, and then whenever you got the property tax hit at the end of the year, then it's kind of a not unexpected per se, but it's a big bill, big burden that isn't so much monthly regulated or adjusted for. So one thing I like to do would be make your primary residence free from property taxes, and we'd still collect taxes on commercial property, second homes, rental houses, things of that nature. But the main thing is look out for the seniors who put in so much time and so much work, bringing us up and shaping us. Now we need to take care of them. And I think one way to do it would be removing the property taxes for the homesteads.
What about no taxes on food? I think Governor Ivey extended something. What is it? 60, might have been 60, 90 days, give or take. What are your thoughts on if we did a no tax on food, period?
Right. Well, this is another thing that I was campaigning on from the start. I didn't just start it whenever it become popular, whenever, I didn't just say it now that it's time for votes. I said it a long time ago at the start. Well, if you look at where we're able to, this as a state, I think what we need to do is we need to bust open the books. We need to audit where all the money's going. We need to consolidate overlapping programs. We need to remove the administrative bloat. And I think once we put in the hard work and the legwork of looking at where all the money's going and where everything's at, and we budget properly, I think there'll be plenty enough money for removing the little 2% off the food tax. But for instance, if the state can pull 200 million for a prison facility, then from the student education budget, and they can pull 30 million for what else they pull it for? 30 million for a electric vehicle training budget, and anyway, so they're pulling all this money from all these various places it wasn't allotted for us, which tells me right there that things aren't properly budgeted. If it was, we wouldn't have to be pulling so much from all these other places that it wasn't allocated for. So, but I think number one, we budget the books like we should, and then I think at that point, when we do the hard work as a state, then we're able to give back to the residents I guess in a way of reduced or eliminated taxes. For instance, it seems like a lot of times the state will rely, whenever they got a little budget shortfall, they'll rely on adding a penny here, a penny there for a tax, as opposed to doing the hard work and budgeting, seeing where, oh, we need to cancel that gym subscription that we don't ever use, or we need to cut out the HBOs. That's what I do whenever I've got a budgeting problem at my house or my businesses. I cut out the wasteful stuff and I get down to what we really need. So I think as a state, when you put in the hard work and we need to just look at the books and focus on that, I think that's the main thing we need to do. And then all the other stuff will kind of fall in place, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of money for to remove a lot of the taxes. Again, if that wasn't the case, we wouldn't be pulling so many times from the education fund and all these other places to fund other things.
When we look at our prison system, I know Alabama has a new prison that's currently being built right now. How do we go into our prisons, not just the one that's being currently built, but how do we go and look at our existing prisons and figure out a way to have a better crowd population? When we look at nonviolent offenders, how do we figure out, okay, should nonviolent offenders be serving a longer sentence, knowing that they have a nonviolent crime? this is a way that we can have a better, crowd control when we look at our prison system. A lot of them are overcrowded. So, what is your plan to try to fix, the overcrowdedness and to make sure that we're not just throwing people in there just to keep the occupancy at 100%?
Right. Well, I think there's a few things. I think one is violent offenders. We need to really focus on, especially repeat violent offenders. We need to probably stiffen penalties on them and keep them in there longer. But as far as the petty people, I think we should really focus on maybe we're giving them too much time for petty crimes, and maybe they need to be doing a lot more probation as opposed to jail time, prison time, if that makes sense, to cut down the population. But also the parole rate, I believe in Alabama is 7% approval, which is really, really low for the country. So maybe we need to revise that to see how the nonviolent offenders will be able to be released more often. Not saying they should be, for no reason be released, but I think we should revisit that. But another thing is, I think we need to offer programs in the jail to keep people, whenever they get released, they'll have trades, just like schools. They'll have trades and they'll have skills where they can open their own businesses or they can go straight into the workforce and have a way to earn money instead of getting out and then not knowing what to do to be able to provide for them or anything. And then they fall back into the recidivism of crime again and then getting put right back in. So we need to focus a lot on the nonviolent ones not serving so much time, the parole, being able to get out for nonviolent crimes, that is. And then the ones who are getting out, be able to have something to fall back on so they don't just fall back into the crime scene or what got them in there to begin with. Along with mental health, we need to focus on that as well. We need to get a lot of mental health treatment in the system all around, whether it's the prison system or just the general population in the public of Alabama. We got a big mental health issue.
When we look at self-funded campaigns versus donations, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll say this. It's just like they say, more money, more problems. I've got some opponents who have raised millions of dollars, which is fine and good for them, but that's millions of dollars that they might have to owe special interest to. That's millions of dollars worth of having to pay back or give favors to, or um, or I think it'll just take away from the focus of Alabama as a whole in itself. For instance, I'm self-funded. I don't need any money. I'm fine. And the only people I care about, the only people I owe anything to, I just owe the people of Alabama a good job. Where these other ones collecting all this money, I feel like they may owe these special interests or these lobbyists or whatever certain favors or certain agendas. Where again, the only people I owe anything to are the people of Alabama. They're the ones I look out for. They're the ones I care about. They're the reason why I got in this race. And that's just my take on it. Again, I think more money, more problems, and I'm for the people of Alabama.
If people want to ask you additional questions, get in contact with you, even if they want to, donate to your campaign, I know you say you're self-funded. How can they do so?
There's various ways. You can go to my website, al4algov.com. It'll have links where you can donate to the Republican Party site. I'm on there with Donald Trump and my other competitors and some others of the Republican Party. So you can donate that way. But again, I'm okay. I'm not asking anybody to fund me. Don't donate. Please don't donate. I'm good right now. I've got enough out there. Let's just get through the primaries and see what happens. But I appreciate it. But if they've got any questions, again, they can go to the website. They can go to the social media pages, which is Alabama for, I don't even know what my social media page is. You can call me. My phone number's out there in public. My number is 256-310-4041. My Facebook, for instance, is Alabama Will for Gov. You can go there, shoot me a message directly. Again, my phone number, everything's out there. I want to be accessible to everybody before, during, and even after the election. I want to be elected. Once elected, you've got my contact. the same number I've had since I was probably a teenager. So you've got a direct line. There's no let me call the governor's office and see if I might be able to set up a call back or a meeting, or hopefully somebody reach back out, somebody return a message, whatever. That's my direct line. You'll be able to contact me anytime. Again, this whole thing is about, for me, is about transparency and giving Alabama something they never had, or something I feel like they hadn't had in a long time, which is a voice, an option, a choice, and have them know that their voice means something. And they actually are the ones, because I'm working for them at that point. They're the ones who actually dictate what direction the state goes in, and what benefits they get. And again, those are my contacts, and they can reach out to me anytime. Not just now; they can reach out to me after the fact.
Last question. Why should the people of Alabama vote for you as the next governor?
Because I relate. I am them. Is the real answer. It was 3 months ago I got into this. Until then, I was wearing blue jeans and picking up a shovel and doing my business stuff. I've got a business mindset, like I say. We've had politicians. I think you've had enough talking. I think now you need somebody who's willing to put in work and be able to do something instead of talking. Um, yeah, again, I relate with the people. I'm not out of touch with them. You can see me at the grocery store, at the gas station. You got my contact information. So I relate. I am Alabama. Again, my whole premise of everything I've set up on, just like I said, my socials is Alabama Will for Gov, or my website's Alabama AL for AL Gov, Alabama for Alabama Gov, because I'm out Alabama. I'm us. So we are together. We're voting for ourselves. And if Alabama should depend on anybody or trust anybody, trust in yourself. Vote for yourself. You vote for me is a vote for you. We're voting. We're running together. Like I say, I'm not somebody you're going to vote for and then go into hiding. You got my contact information. I am you. I'm here for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Will Santivasci, who is campaigning to be the next governor of Alabama. Will, thank you for your time and best of luck in your campaign.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. I sincerely appreciate you.